My name is Frank, and I'm a bulldog. If you've ever seen a bulldog with a serious expression and funny wrinkles on its skin, then you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But don't be fooled by my appearance. I'm actually a real optimist and a jokester on the inside. Today I want to share with you the story of my first Christmas in a real family. It was a time of discoveries, joy, and of course, many funny moments. Before, my life was very different. I lived in an animal shelter for homeless pets. My days were monotonous, grey walls, noisy neighbors, and constant waiting. I often sat by the window, looking out at the street and dreaming about what it would be like to have my own home, my own family. Sometimes other dogs would say that bulldogs aren't in favor, that people prefer fashionable purebred dogs with long fur and gazelle-like grace. But I never lost hope. One day, a man came to the shelter. He was tall, with warm brown eyes and a broad smile. He walked slowly past the cages, stopping at each one, talking to the dogs. When he came to me, I felt something special. Our eyes met, and in that moment, I knew it was fate. He sat next to me and said, "Hi, buddy. What's your name?" Of course, I couldn't answer, but I wagged my tail so hard it seemed like it was about to fall off. That's how I ended up in a new home. It was a cozy house with a big garden, soft carpets, and the most comfortable couch in the world. My owner, let's call him Henry, immediately showed me all the pleasures of home life. The first thing I noticed was the huge window with a view of the street. I could sit for hours, watching pedestrians, cars, and of course the neighbor's cat, who always walked around with the air of someone who owned the whole world. Christmas was approaching and the house began to transform. Henry brought home some boxes, hung up lights and decorations. One day he brought in a giant green tree and set it up in the living room. At first I didn't understand why we needed a tree in the house. Maybe it was a new place for my markings. But after the first scolding I realized this was a special tree and better left untouched. Henry decided to decorate the tree and I helped in my own way. My help mostly consisted of dragging the ornaments around the house and trying to chew on them. Henry laughed and said, "Frank, you're a real helper." I felt like part of the team. One evening, Henry invited friends over. The house was filled with laughter, conversations, and amazing smells. I was the center of attention. They petted me, complimented me, and even gave me treats under the table. One of the guests, Mark, said, "Frank, you're the most charming bulldog I've ever seen." I thought, of course I'm unique, but the funniest part was yet to come. Henry decided to dress me up in a Christmas costume. Have you ever seen a bulldog in a red sweater with reindeer and a Santa hat? I looked, to put it mildly, extravagant. But I must admit, I liked the attention. The kids clapped their hands, the adults smiled, and I proudly strutted around the room, jingling the bell on my collar. At one point I heard a strange noise outside. It was fireworks. I had never seen or heard them before. The first flashes and loud noises scared me. My heart raced, and I hid under the table. Henry immediately noticed my state. He knelt next to me and started speaking in a calm voice. "Hey Frank, it's okay. It's just fireworks. They're beautiful, look." He picked me up. Yes, I'm not a small dog, but Henry is strong, and walked to the window. Together we watched the bright lights in the sky. Gradually my fear faded, and I began to admire the spectacle. "There we go. Much better." Henry smiled. I felt safe and realized that with an owner like this, nothing could scare me. After the fireworks, the guests decided to sing Christmas carols. They grabbed a guitar, some drums, and started singing. I decided to join in and howl to the rhythm of the music. Everyone laughed and said I was a talented singer. Who knows, maybe I should try a career in music. During breaks between songs, I noticed there were a lot of treats left on the table. It smelled of turkey, cheese, pizza, and something incredibly appetizing. I quietly snuck up to the table and tried to reach the plate of pizza. Almost made it, but just then, Mark turned around and spotted me. "Hey look, Frank is throwing himself a party," he exclaimed. Everyone laughed and Henry said, "Well, let him try. After all, it's his first Christmas." The pizza was delicious. I enjoyed every bite, feeling my stomach fill with happiness. After such a treat, I decided to rest a bit and lay down by the fireplace. The warmth of the fire was comforting, and my eyes closed on their own. But it was too early to sleep. The celebration was still going strong. At one point, a little girl, the daughter of one of the guests, came over to me. She sat down beside me and started petting my head. "You're such a good boy," she said. I opened one eye and saw her smile. In that moment, I felt like I wasn't just a dog, but part of a big family. The night continued, and I decided to join the fun again. Henry suggested everyone play board games. I didn't understand the rules, but I sat nearby and watched carefully. When someone took a turn, I happily wagged my tail, adding to the excitement. Later, Henry announced it was time for presents. There were many beautifully wrapped boxes under the tree. I didn't expect there to be something for me, but it turned out Henry hadn't forgotten about me. He pulled out a small box and said, "This is for you, Frank." I eagerly approached and sniffed the gift. Henry helped me open it, and inside was a new toy, a plush bear. I was thrilled. I grabbed the bear and started running around the room with it, making everyone laugh and smile. As midnight approached, the guests began to leave. I saw each one off, wagging my tail and receiving warm words and petting in return. When the last guest left, the house fell silent. Henry tiredly sat down on the couch and sighed. I walked over to him and rested my head on his lap. "Well, old buddy Frank, looks like it was a great Christmas," he said, petting me behind the ear. I agreed, letting out a satisfied purr. We sat in silence, enjoying the moment. I thought about how my life had changed in such a short time. From a lonely dog in a shelter to a beloved pet in a real family. This feeling was new to me, but so pleasant. The next day we woke up late. The sun was already shining through the window, and outside there was fresh snow. Henry suggested we go for a walk. I was all for it. The fresh air and the chance to play in the snow sounded tempting. We went out and I immediately rushed into the snowdrift. The snow was soft and fluffy. I rolled around, jumped, and even tried to catch the snowballs Henry threw at me. During the walk, we met some neighbors. They smiled and greeted us. Some asked Henry about his new pet. I stood proudly next to him, showing my best side. One of the neighbors, Mrs. Smith, said, "What a wonderful dog you have. He's so charming." Henry smiled and replied, "Thanks, Frank really is special." On the way back, we ran into that same neighbor's cat. It was sitting on a tree branch watching us from above. I stopped and looked at him. He squinted his eyes and said, "Well, Bulldog, decided to take a walk?" I smirked to myself. "Yeah, just stretching my legs after a busy night," I thought. We exchanged glances, and I continued on. After all, why waste time with verbal sparring when ahead of me lay a warm home and a delicious lunch? Back home, Henry put the kettle on for tea and started preparing breakfast. I sat by the kitchen, hoping to get a little something for myself, and sure enough, Henry tossed me a piece of ham. "You deserve it, buddy," he said. I eagerly ate the treat and felt like the happiest dog in the world. After breakfast, Henry decided to clean up. The house needed tidying after the party. I decided to help in my own way. I gathered all my toys and piled them in the corner. Henry noticed and praised me. "Frank, you're a real champ." I proudly lifted my head. It's always nice when your efforts are appreciated. The day passed quietly. Henry and I watched movies, he read, and I napped beside him, and just enjoyed each other's company. At one point, I thought about how lucky I was. Many dogs dream of having an owner like Henry in such a home. I decided that I would do everything I could to be the best friend to Henry. In the evening, Henry suggested we play. He pulled out a ball, and we started a fun game around the house. I ran, jumped, and tried to catch the ball, while Henry laughed and cheered me on. At one point, I accidentally knocked a vase off the shelf. It fell and broke. I froze, waiting for Henry's reaction. He walked over, looked at the shards, and said, "Well, it happens. The important thing is you didn't get hurt." I sighed in relief. Not every owner would have reacted so calmly to a broken vase. Before bed, Henry sat next to me and said, "You know, Frank, you're the best gift I could have asked for this Christmas." I looked at him with my big eyes and licked his hand. "And you're the best for me," I thought. Lying in my soft bed, I reflected on the past days. Life is full of surprises. Who would have thought that from the shelter I would end up in such a wonderful home. But the most important thing is that I found a friend. A true friend, with whom I will share joys and sorrows, fun and boredom. I remembered the words of the old dog in the shelter, who often said, "Life isn't a place to rush. Look around, feel the wind, listen to the sounds, and find your melody." Now I understood what he meant. The next morning I woke up to the sun shining directly in my face. I stretched and yawned. Henry was already in the kitchen preparing breakfast. I walked over to him and he greeted me. "Good morning, sleepyhead. Ready for new adventures?" I wagged my tail in response. Henry suggested we go to the park. I was thrilled. The park is a place where I can run tirelessly, meet other dogs, and just enjoy nature. We arrived at the park, and I immediately dashed ahead. The fresh air, the smell of trees, the singing of birds, it all made me so happy. During the walk, we met other dogs. I made friends with a Labrador named Buddy and a Spaniel named Bella. We ran around, played tag, and just chatted about doggy business. Buddy asked me, "Are you new here? I haven't seen you before." I told him my story and he replied, "It's great you found such a good home." Bella added, "Yes, Henry's wonderful. He often comes here with his camera and takes beautiful pictures." I was surprised. "A camera? I didn't know he liked taking pictures." Bella smiled. "Oh yes, he's quite talented." Returning home, I decided to look for proof of Henry's photographic hobby. Sure enough, on the shelves, I found many photos of nature, animals, and even a few of me. I felt proud. Maybe I'd be a model? In the evening, I went up to Henry and, looking him in the eyes, tried to convey my thoughts. "Thank you for everything. You've made my life wonderful." He, as if understanding me, smiled and said, "You know, Frank, you've made my life brighter. You've brought joy and meaning into it." We settled down by the fireplace again. The fire crackled softly, creating a cozy atmosphere. I thought about how much was still ahead. New adventures, new friends, and of course, more pieces of pizza left on the edge of the table. And you know what I realized? That true happiness isn't about expensive toys or gourmet treats. True happiness is being with those who love and accept you just as you are. Who will pet you on the head, even if you've been naughty. Who will laugh with you and support you during tough times. So went my first Christmas in a real family. Full of wonderful discoveries, laughter, and love. And I'm sure there are many more beautiful moments ahead of me. After all, life is beautiful when you have a true friend. And if you ever see a bulldog with a serious expression and funny wrinkles, don't rush to think he's sad. Maybe he's just deeply contemplating the meaning of life or planning how to steal the next piece of pizza from the table. Or maybe it's me, Frank, enjoying every moment of my amazing life.